A lot of people are always surprised that I can speak Punjabi or that I've been to India. They just assume that because I'm first generation that I don't care about our culture. And unfortunately, I feel like that was the norm with a lot of kids of our generation because, again, assimilation played a part in that. So many social constructs kind of forced a lot of people to go that route because both parents had to work, so they weren't home all the time. And we were trying to balance our Canadian culture with our Indian heritage in a time where racism was high. And now the fact that we're all reclaiming our culture again, this generation really has the best opportunity to be in touch with those things. I am an Ayurvedic alchemist, as I like to say. So I do holistic wellness education, and I provide people with Ayurvedic consultations and body work, as well as being an entrepreneur with a natural food business. A lot of things. I think for me, it's been quite a journey to get into figuring out what that actually was. Over the last few years, especially, I just look back on my childhood or my early adulthood, and I realized that I never really quite fit into the norm. And especially as an Indian person who's exploring a kind of an unconventional career path, I would say, it took me a while to trace the roots and be like, oh, there was a reason why I always felt like I didn't fit into the norm, or I was interested in other things. But definitely to actually fully pursue this, for me, it was a combination of that one, realizing that there was a reason why I didn't fit in because I had to create something new, which was meant just for me and where I could fully show up as myself. And the other part was when I was in my early 20s, I suddenly lost my Nanaji. So in that moment, everything in life that I was kind of trying to fit into, whether it was I was going to be a marketing professional, or so I thought. So none of that stuff seemed relevant anymore to me. And I think that allowed me to completely go into my own self, like that grief or that sense of loss. And it put me in touch with myself. So I had no choice but to look at what are the things I truly, truly value and how do I want to live the rest of my life? Because I just felt like everything was so temporary. And I just didn't want to waste time trying to struggle and fit into a place that wasn't for me. And that forced me to really go out and explore Ayurveda, and for my own well-being. It came as a necessity. I had to make myself well and better, and that put me in touch with what I think is my dharma. Yeah, I mean, the end goal is just to be taking over this whole space of wellness and be, spiritually evolved, but as well as make that money, because there's so much out there to be done, and helping people as well as gaining that financial capital and social capital, I feel is a way to really make change long term. And I think when you talk about going with the flow, I really don't feel like I have a choice. Just like I got to this point was a certain type of flow. Whether I resisted it or not, I had to follow it. So the divine knows the real plan. I can just have an idea or a goal of where I'd like to be, and if that happens, it's amazing, but I feel like it's always going to be so much beyond what you even expect or want. So I'm going with the flow, yes, but also planting some seeds along the way of my own. I think that when you're in, especially the industry that I'm in, when it's about health or wellness, or it is in some ways a service to the people. A lot of people that I also work with, we struggle with being okay with the fact that we also want to have financial security for ourselves. If you look at traditionally a lot of these career paths, unless you're someone, like Deepak Chopra, for example, or like Oprah, they've taken a certain path and used a lot of these tools to get to where they are, and they have that financial capital as well. But for the rest of the people, whether it's a yoga teacher or someone who's providing body work, it's almost expected for us to give away the things that we've worked really hard, years of education and trainings, to just give it away and lower its value in the world, because it's not tangible a lot of the times. But I've just looked at it like this. everything is energy. In order for me to be better at what I want to do, to bring more resources for myself and the people around me, and to actually really impact my community, I need a combination of those things. So why not make money and also be passionate about what I do, rather than having to make money by giving my talents and gifts to someone else who is going to use them to make money, you know? I'm working for myself, and I'm working not with the sole intention and purpose of making money, but it should also be something that we shouldn't feel bad about that, because we do live in the world and we do need those things in order to get further and I think create better opportunities for ourselves. When I think about this question, automatically when I think about community, I'm like, oh, like you must mean like the Indian community or the Panjabi community. And I realized that for me, community means I make that wherever I go. The community is where I feel a sense of wanting to connect and belong and share. All those different types of people form my community. And I don't really say that it's only this one particular community that inspires me or I belong to. It's a combination. Like everybody is an ingredient to the dish that I'm trying to make. And I just feel inspired by a lot of the young people that are doing things, that are following their passions, which even 5 to 10 years ago, when I was in my 20s, it was not a thing. Like if you were someone who was wanting to pursue anything creative, anything that was a little bit questionable and there wasn't a guaranteed paycheck at the end, like a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, or working for somebody else, it wasn't acceptable. That was a hobby. So now that I see so many more, especially brown women that are coming up, that are in the industry that I'm in, or they're doing fashion, or they're doing music, or they're pursuing, you know, whatever else it is, it's just so inspiring for me, because even at where I'm at now, I had to work really hard and struggle to get here, and to know that it's okay, the struggle was worth it, because now so many more people from our communities are doing those things, and we need to infiltrate those spaces. You know, we need to be in music, we need to be in sports, we need to be in arts, we need to be in medicine, we need to be in wellness, wherever else where we can be, because we have our unique gifts to offer. And that inspires me to continue to do what I'm doing, because there is a certain type of demographic that has held the control for like these types of industries, and it's our own wisdom that's being used, and then it's packaged in a certain way and sold back to us. So I want to be that representative for my own heritage and community, to be like, no, they can have it from this source rather than a different source. I think it's really interesting because people don't take what I do seriously a lot of the times, because again, it was considered to be something that's a hobby. And people are like, oh, well, you can't possibly make money from that. Where a lot of our value in our culture is, can you make money from what you're doing? And if you can't, and you can't sustain yourself, then it's not a real valid career path. So I get a lot of questions about that. And I think because I also look quite young, and you know, I have a certain way of interacting with people, and they don't expect me to know what I do know, and they'll still see me as like a little kid who's just exploring, she's just having fun figuring out this stuff, but like eventually we'll do something else, you know. That's one thing, is like not being able to have credibility because people don't understand what it is that I'm doing. And if they do, then they're like, oh, but that's like wisdom that someone much older should have. So those are the challenges. But I think after all these years of going head first into it and like being like, I'm here, like this is what I know, this is what I can do, I'm validated in what I'm trying to share, I think that I've like overcome a lot of those challenges, and when they do come, I have a different approach, because I now am also so much more confident in my skills and what I'm doing with them. Yeah, and as a woman, I think it's also interesting navigating the space where we're from a very young age taught to compete with each other, you know, and to kind of let your guards down and like learn to work with other women and understand that there's enough out there for all of us, you know, whether it's someone that's doing the same thing as I am or something different, just supporting each other, and also in that support, being authentic to myself, that's I think been my saving grace, is still maintaining who I am in my value system while still supporting the other sisters who are out there doing stuff. But I will definitely say it's more shifting the space now with brown women working together, whereas like a few years ago I feel like it was like everyone for themselves. I think I'm evolving every day. I think it depends on who I'm working with or where I'm at. I have to evolve constantly, because if I'm stuck to this idea that I know and this is the only set way that I'm going to get to where I want to go, I don't think it's in my best interest. And I'm a person, I love the process of evolution, because that means there's always potential to be better, to know more, to learn more, and to grow more. So I think for me, I would evolve by just continuing to stay open. A few that I think are really important to me is, one, being authentic to yourself. A lot of the times when we're trying, especially as young people, to navigate in this space where we have social media, we have all these pressures where everybody's trying to be somebody. And sometimes when we're still trying to figure out who we are, we tend to shift and mold our value system, or the way we approach life, or the way we show up in situations to other people. So I have found that the most rewarding thing is always being authentic to yourself, and knowing that there is a place for that person exactly as you are, with what you know, with what you have to offer. And if it's not in that place, the right place is going to come, and the right people are going to come, and to hang on to that, because when you go outside of your authentic self, it's exhausting to try to maintain that, because that's not you. So the more comfortable you become with who you are, and if you're not comfortable with something, shifting it so that you do become more of who you want to be, and just maintaining authenticity with everyone you meet. In school, I feel like they kind of brainwash you into thinking like when you're a business professional, you have to be this certain way. You have to like wear dress pants and a blazer. And like as soon as I started working for myself, I got rid of all that shit, because I was like, that's not authentically me. I want people to meet the me that's inside and know that I'm multifaceted. You know, I can be a business professional, but I can also be, you know, playful and fun. And then I can also, you know, be in all the spaces that I need to be. I'm multifaceted. So that's one thing, is your authentic self, and being vulnerable. I think especially in our culture as well, vulnerability is something that is not really acceptable, and it's kind of looked down upon. But I've learned, like even through before I started really going into my Ayurvedic practice, like I'm also a coach. So I learned through that process that true connection comes from vulnerability. And if we're not truly connecting with one another, with our authentic selves, we're kind of all just playing a role and keeping it at the surface, which is fine. It depends what it's for. But if we can be vulnerable and really build those connections from the heart, I think they'll serve us so much better. And what else? Those are two that I think have been most important for me. And three is, I would say, have value for your work. You know, a lot of the times I've had people who have come to me and been like, oh, like, you know, this is like a free service, or, you know, like, it's cool. Like, what if I just pay you this much? And I used to feel bad and be like, oh, let me just give it away. And then I had to really be like, no, everything is energy. So until I see my work at an elevated place and I have value for it, other people aren't going to see it that way. And you'll be amazed that when you hold that value, those people that see it that way are going to come to you. So don't lower your shit just because you think that's what people need. But at the same time, have a standard, have those boundaries, and then be open to everything else as well. Like, don't only sit up here and be like, oh, everyone else is beneath me, because there's always space. Like, nothing is static. Everything is fluid in life, and learning to go with that fluidity is really key. Yeah, my intuition. I really like it. For me, it's the things that can't be seen. So it's like a feeling in the pit of my stomach or in my chest. As soon as I know that I'm accumulating something that's heavy and sticky and it's not me, I know that it's not the right thing for me. That's probably my first like check-in. But the thing is, a lot of the times we're so bombarded with so much other shit that we don't even hear our intuition. And I feel like really inside ourselves, we know. We can lie to ourselves for a certain amount of time, but inside, when it just doesn't sit right, eventually it'll come forward, and you'll have a choice to make in that moment. Do you want to continue to be your inauthentic self? Sure. But for me to go into that space and just be myself is so much more valuable than any opportunity I'm gonna get, any money I'm gonna make, any relationships I'm gonna build. If I'm doing it from the authentic self, they're invaluable to me. So I check in with my gut feeling. I think everything comes down to your mindset of what you think losses and wins are. I think, again, from a very early age, we're taught like, when this happens, this is a loss. When this happens, it's a win. But a lot of the times I find that like the losses, if you look beneath them, they're never actually losses. If you have the clarity and the willingness to dig a little bit deeper, there's always a lesson in there, and that was meant just for you. And it wasn't about getting that thing, it was about the lesson. So if you have the ability to look deeper, then there's never a loss. Obviously we can have real losses, like losing someone you love or something of that sort, but I think the value system, for me, it's like, can I grow from this? If I can grow from this loss, then it's actually a win for me. And a lot of the times when people are looking at a win, is it actually a win? Is it just serving my ego that I was able to check this thing off my list, or I was able to get this thing? But if I don't feel a sense of elevation in my consciousness, then is it really a win for me? So I think when you talk about losses and wins, it has to come down to what's your level of consciousness. What is your willingness to look deeper beyond the surface? I think it's been huge for me because growing up, like, I'm first generation, so I always felt deeply, deeply connected to India. And you know, I was the kid that would like find any opportunity to like try to wear my suit to school. I started like a Gidda Bhangra team at my school, and I was like the only kid. It was like I like forced my aunt to come and teach us and gathered all these kids because there was none of that happening, and I wanted to do it so badly. And every time I would go, I felt like it was like coming home, even though it wasn't. I was born here, but that feeling was always there. And I think I lost it as a young adult, just because, you know, even for my parents, like, they did their best to maintain that connection to the culture, and I'm so grateful for them to do that, because there was a lot of times where I didn't respect it and I didn't have value for it, and that was because everybody was trying so hard to assimilate, even them. But we had to work even harder because there wasn't a space, you know. Yes, we would have like Vaisakhi, or you would go to the Gurdwara on Sundays, or the TV program on Saturdays all day was Panjabi, but I didn't have access to what I wish I had, which was like more subtle wisdom, you know, being surrounded by elders, because my grandparents were so busy working. Like, they worked on the farms like from the minute they got here till they were quite old, and I didn't get to like see them all the time, and I think I lost out on that a lot of the times. But as an adult, as soon as I think I could make a conscious choice, and I realized that in my spirit, my connection to my heritage and my culture is a huge part of what I'm doing, because Ayurveda, all this wisdom, it comes from India. So if I can't connect to my heritage, I can't connect to that. And I feel really, really fortunate to be able to, you know, be a representative of that, and in a space that's dominated really by a lot of white people in a long time, because we lost connection to our culture and our wisdom and our medicine. So a lot of people are always surprised that again, that I can speak Punjabi or that I've been to India. They just assume that because I'm first generation that I don't care about our culture. And unfortunately, I feel like that was the norm with a lot of kids of our generation, because again, assimilation played a part in that. So many social constructs kind of forced a lot of people to go that route because both parents had to work, so they weren't home all the time, and we were trying to balance our Canadian culture with our Indian heritage in a time where racism was high. And now the fact that we're all reclaiming our culture again, this generation really has the best opportunity to be in touch with those things. For me, it doesn't matter if it's personal or business, because if my mind, body, and spirit aren't aligned, I'm not going to be successful in anything I do. So for me, my spiritual practices, my meditation, my sadhana, learning, and then practicing self-care, all those things make me better at what I'm going to do, whether it's in my personal relationships, in my work, in my business relationships. It all comes down to how much am I nourishing and feeding my spirit. So that question, it's everything to me. I would say look at your value system first and foremost and see, why are you trying to do the things you want to do? And when you find that answer, like I really look at, like, you know, panning for gold, like you get through all that dirt and all that shit and you pan through it and you look at what you have in there. Are those things what you want to keep in there? You know, keep the nuggets of gold that are worth the most to you, then look at why you want those things, and then pursue, whether it's your career or whether it's your personal life, you know, always pursue things that are for your highest good. Don't limit yourself for the low-hanging fruit. There's so much more in the world to learn and to see that isn't always tangible, you know, and bring value to your spirit. Those are the things, if you can cultivate, you know, wisdom and health and prosperity of your spirit, no one can take those things away from you. We can make all the money in the world in a second, it can be gone. But if your inner spirit is unshakable, you can thrive and survive in any situation. And I think that's what we need to put more focus on. And we have access to all the tools. It's about shifting our value system to see that those tools are actually worth way more to us. You know, a lot of young people, when I started like my journey on the spiritual path, and people would be like, that's so lame, like, oh, like you don't drink or you don't party. I'm like, I can out party probably most of you and still wake up the next day and have clarity of mind and joy in my spirit. Is like, is your spirit joyful when you're doing the things you're doing? If it's not, it's time to check yourself. And yeah, I think when you assess your value system and you implement all those tools to take care of your inner wealth first, outside, naturally your environment starts to change, your relationships start to change, opportunities start to change. So if shit's not working out for you the way you want it to, look at your operating systems and don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to do shit that you don't know about. I didn't know about any of this stuff. It was really uncomfortable for me to go sit with people, you know, a lot of the times when I started, a lot older than me, and to be like, oh my God, like I can't sit for meditation. Or even when it comes to business, like I feel like I'm learning from scratch, even though my dad's an entrepreneur. It's a completely different ball game right now. So being able to ask for help, and then if someone's coming to you and offering you something, a lot of the times we kind of discount people if we don't see them in a certain light. Whether it's your parents or other elders or even someone maybe younger than you or whatever, be open to listening to what they have to say, because it might be something that you haven't heard before or in that way that's going to be applicable to your situation if you have enough refined consciousness to take it in.